So, welcome to HSA Finance Community. I am Matteo Grassani, and today I'm joined by Jen Berrent, co-founder of Covenant, AI-powered law firm, which is building a new model for legal services, combining not only legal expertise, but also AI and a great customer experience. So we'll ask Jen about this. And so, Jen, to start with, I saw one of your interviews, and you mentioned at some point in time in your life you had to take a break because it was a very intense professional experience. You moved to the Hudson Valley, you thought of becoming a farmer, even bought a tractor. So, how was that experience, away from the noise, the big city, the adrenaline, everything you knew already? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I think a career has a lot of ups and downs, and I really like being in a high gear, sort of going as fast as you can. But in order to do that, I think you need to pull back. I think sort of when you look at the high performance of, a sports team, right? There's an off season. If you think about high level academia, there's an off season, the summer or breaks, and so I think in a career you have to sort of do that as well. And for me, the WeWork experience was so intense, and then had an ending, which honestly was a midpoint for the company, but an ending for my time there that was, less than satisfactory. It wasn't as fun as sort of the high flying days. So I really enjoyed it. Allowed me to reset. I think, being in nature and doing something else, and then sort of rekindling a love for work in the city was very important to me. I wasn't sure if I'd go back to the city, but I actually really missed it.
Can you imagine?
Wanted
Can miss the
kids around.
adrenaline. And do
Yeah,
you still own the tractor?
I do. I do.
Oh,
Still plant trees, just not the same. Yeah, but I do.
all right, that's very cool. But moving to your founder's journey, your co-founder Richard Perry, so he's the former general counsel of CVC Capital, which is one of the largest investment firms, especially in private markets. So, how the story? How did you guys connect and decided to go from a conversation to building a company together?
Sure. Yeah, this is honestly one of those, classic, I guess, founder stories. To us, a New York story, but I think it happens all over the world. Is he had left CVC really the same time I had left WeWork, so the end of 2020. And he really was he had this idea for working on the LP side and saying, okay, there's a lot of waste and inefficiency in the investment process, and I think I can help that. And I really came at it from I've seen how to operationalize deals, and I really think there's a new way to practice law. And it was not related to the private markets. We both figured, by the time we had met, I had seen a development sandbox of GPT-3 before ChatGPT. And so really was like, this is how you're going to change the practice of law. And through sort of a series of connections, we eventually came to someone that said, Jen, you should meet Richard, and Richard, you should meet Jen. And we had, a cup of coffee at a diner. And then we really spent 3 or 4 months thinking through what we could do that would be a big swing, that would really change the landscape. He probably has more of a coder mind than I do. Like, he really got into the AI technology, and I have more of like the project management, operational side. And so he could play around with AI, and I could play around with systematizing, and then that came together as something that worked
Yeah.
together.
And you were a senior executive at WeWork, co-president, great experience, and I'm sure. But what kind of lessons did you bring to, in building Covenant? That it's a different setup,
Oh,
but still.
sure. Yeah. So there are a few things. One is the idea that a legacy industry can be disrupted with the right product and with a focus on client experience was really, or customer experience. WeWork has a product that, to this day, despite sort of the drama of the company is an amazing product that people love around the world. I mean, I was just talking to someone yesterday that I know from WeWork India, and WeWork India went public, right? So, this is a product that resonated around the world and served a real need and changed people's relationship to real estate and the office space and how they went to work. And there is a long tail impact. And we think the same thing can be in the law. Like, you have to focus on that client experience, and there could be a huge impact in the client experience, not just in how lawyers practice, but how clients experience. The other thing, honestly, which was we just were talking a little bit, you're in Saudi Arabia, I'm in New York. We have huge clients in Singapore, in the Middle East, in Europe. The other lesson from WeWork, which it was really, you can go global very early. You don't need to own the US before you think about expanding through the world. And, that's really how we run Covenant, on those two things, right? Focusing on clients and not, although a lot of our clients are US based, not saying we have to be US only before we think globally. And I think those two things are important for building a brand and really changing behavior.
And both of you are in New York, or because I know Richard is British, so I don't know whether you guys are.
Yeah, we're both in New York now. I mean, we will think of, having a London presence sooner rather than later, but, we will do that, really around the world. We will have sort of presence, but we both sit in New York. Well, everyone sits in New York, really.
Yeah, everyone. They say it's the new Silicon Valley, at least for legal tech. So I'm sure you must be there. But why the name Covenant? I mean, I like Covenant.co. The .co I learned. I didn't know it's a must-have in the startup
Yeah.
space. So that's something I learned. But why Covenant? Or how did you pick the name?
Sure. The idea was that we really were thinking about there is a better way to do agreements. That was really the original part. And so thinking, how do you connect with clients around the idea of, what's our promise to you, in terms of your experience, and what sort of anchors to something legal without, being a Latin word that, is unapproachable. So, really like sort of the underlying meaning of covenant, some of the subtext around it of having a promise, and then it anchored in something very practical that we were doing.
So I guess your clients, they all know what a covenant is because they're all private markets. So I'm sure it resonates well with them. And at some point, I mean, you decided to fundraising. And so what convinced you that was the right time, the right thing to do? And for what actually that you went to investors
Sure.
or
I think,
external capitalists?
and we haven't raised that. I mean, considering how much capital has been raised in legal tech and by other companies, including other AI law firms, we've really raised a small amount. We've raised, I think, in total around 5 million. Or I know in total around 5 million. So really not a huge amount, we may raise a little bit more. But the idea was as as AI developed, really part of the promise of what we want for client experience is not just to have AI for efficiency, but also to have AI in terms of product development. And so really, we're not going to be a tech company, but we really want to have tech embedded. And so we really raised money to have really a point solution, technology. So we use a lot of off the shelf, but our product and part of the experience is that product, and we just need a little more engineering talent.
And on that one, did you use the conversations with your investors or external investors to sharpen the idea, to challenge the original thesis, or no? They said, "You guys, we like you. Just go ahead, and this is the check."
No, for sure. I would say that the shift in our company, so it was pretty dramatic. So we were, more of a tech-enabled services with a portal. And Flybridge led the round. Jesse Middleton's a partner, but just a really seasoned team there. And what we learned from our clients is that we were too into the tech is like a magic trick. So give us your agreement and we'll send you a summary. And that's table stakes. We launched that in January 2024. We were, ahead or, in the front runners of companies that would do that, especially for a complex agreement. And because, we only wanted to start with something that was large. The context window from OpenAI opened up in November 2023. So really in January 2024, that was early to say, here's a product we can summarize. But by March of 2025, what we had heard from clients is, that's great. We understand AI works. There is a lot of tailwinds from, the Harveys of the world raising a lot of money. We want a solution from you, right? So we want to get deals done, or we want to get answers fast. We don't just want this magic trick of a summary. And so what we really did was reorient the technology that we use to actually sort of advance it so much that you're really replicating much more with AI and much more with software, the experience of going to a law firm. So as much as you can make on the software experience as possible allows clients to really feel sort of the momentum and the velocity of getting a deal done. The second part was that many clients have a desire, as we call it, to get answers fast. They want to get data, and they don't like lawyers as the gatekeeper to their own data. And so we basically created a way for clients to easily have access to their data without talking to us. And so they don't pay us. There's no charge to be on the platform. We put their data on, and then they have access to their own portfolio of their data. And that really, for many of our clients was, is really critical to them, so that they really have a sense of, here are my legal terms, here's my database, and how can I access and understand my own data.
So you're a repository, and then you apply data analytics, and then your clients can use those data analytics and.
Exactly.
All right, that's and what were the challenges in, going from the business opportunity, seeing it, because I remember when GPT came out, and time to market, because it's always, you're an agile organization, but still you had to put a lot of stuff together.
Yeah. So at the very beginning, when we had the idea, the biggest issue was this context window. So there were two. I would say there are two issues. One is which, the tolerance for hallucinations and errors in some ways is higher than we expected, but that's because a lot of legal tech is being used by lawyers who check things. And we really wanted to address that issue and give our clients something that had the certitude you would get from a human and actually outperforms a human alone, or outperforms any human using other AI technology. And so we built the way we review agreements is that we use ensembling. So we use multi-model review. We have a set of questions. It goes through those three models. Now we've layered on AI as a judge, and then we have a back-end QA system. And so lawyers actually verify data. Every bit of data has an extract from the agreement. It has reasoning. And so that QA gets faster and faster and better. But we wanted to make sure that that was part of the experience, especially to get some big ticket, these, high intensity institutional investors. The second was the context window. And we spent a lot of time saying, okay, how can you chunk up an agreement? How can you use RAG? And quite frankly, nothing worked. There's no way to actually get good answers reviewing an agreement without having the agreement all together. And so that's why I mentioned that November 2023, because we knew that was a turning point for the company. We were ready for it. And up until then, we really didn't have a solution for the problem. We weren't going to be able to do what we wanted to do with agreements. You'd have to go down to an NDA or something. And we really didn't want to do that.
And how did you balance the tension between trying to develop a tech product and then delivering a great customer experience? Because sometimes there is it's not an easy one to balance.
No, not at all. I think, one of the benefits of being I was a law firm lawyer and a law firm partner is the idea of client service and the idea of just saying yes and then figuring out how you're going to solve it. It comes more naturally than saying it has to be technology first. And so a lot was working with clients and saying, sure, we can do that. And then figuring it out after. As long as the core technology worked in terms of reviewing and that we were truly using AI, clients allowed us some leeway to have the tech catch up to what humans could do. And so now, again, that experience that clients have, if they send us an agreement or they send us other intense documents, the results that they get back in a couple of days has almost no human intervention. There's this point of quality
Yeah, yeah.
assurance, but it probably started out as 50-50. And now it's, so it's much higher now.
Yeah, and it's getting better. I mean, yeah, it's
Exactly.
getting better
Getting
every
better.
6 months. So.
Exactly.
And I mean, you mentioned hallucination, and I mean, we like AI, we use AI. I'm a great fan. Some people have concern for good reasons, and one of the challenges we receive is yes, but we still need a human to check because of the hallucination, and AI can get it wrong. So how do you address that question, which may have come your way, I'm sure?
Yeah, so the core functionality, when clients, we have this verified data, right? So this core, if you send us an agreement, we will give you answers and those answers will be verified. And we're just really good at that. So we use this multiple models. We have the QA system, our lawyers are fast, we stay narrow in what we do. And then we layer on sort of AI to delight clients. So basically we rerun that agreement through and we say, here are where issues can be, or here's commentary. All of that, and it says generated by AI. We don't charge extra for that. That's all in the initial review. And so there's a tolerance for clients to say, okay, that additional layer of commentary can be AI generated, and it's like advice that I may or may not want. It's not a true sort of fact. The facts are all correct. And then again, we're available if you would, if this is where you would like to talk to a lawyer, or you'd actually like the lawyer to have the issues list, or you'd like to have a call. And so it really meets clients where they are. Some are very skilled lawyers themselves, and they understand that, look, if the answer is right and sort of the analysis on top of it is AI generated, they can overrule it. And some rely on us to do that. So it really, allows us the flexibility to meet clients where, meet their needs.
And in terms of clients, do you see any category of clients which is more, let's say, amenable to come to you guys? I'm sure sovereign funds and maybe some private equity, but what kind of who is more advanced in terms of acceptance or adoption of AI?
Sure. So, I mean, all of our clients are institutional investors. We have a lot of U.S. endowments are very amenable. I think we have over half of the top 20, and we're continuing to add on endowments. I think there's a mixture of they're in education, and so there's a sense of experimentation and being open to new ideas there. And there is they're not for profit, so there's a cost consciousness. So I think we really meet a need for them. And then there are some fund of funds, sovereign wealth, around the world, some very large family offices. Again, where there's an orientation towards innovation. And we've just started selling to VC funds, and we think there'll be, so we now could do direct investments. So if you're a VC fund and you want to do an investment in any private company, especially at the early stages, it's just a much better experience, and we go faster, and we're sort of, we're keenly focused on serving that market. And so we think that VC funds will like this offering because they're in the business of innovation.
So it seems to me like you guys really define your circle of competence very well. So you started from a sweet spot. And do you see that over time, you could move, or you see Covenant moving from a point solution to like a collaboration platform? Because today, especially, you have been an in-house counsel, so it's all about integration and legal, finance, the investment bankers, the tax advisors, the financial advisor, everybody working on the same platform, which is not happening today. But do you see that over time that's feasible, or still too far ahead?
So I think it's not just that. I think that I think there's opportunity for a few things. One is the way we get deals done, I think is incredibly efficient and is sort of a new experience. And so we can move up chain. So, we started with something that, had a sort of a fairly small set of tasks that need to be done. Now we're doing something, venture deals have diligence. And so how do you get better at doing that? And then you can sort of do larger, private investments, and then you can move to secondaries transactions, and you can move to M&A, right? You see that chain up as, we get better, as technology gets better, that we could just move from transaction to transaction, without an issue. I also do think that there is a massive opportunity for other types of services companies to align themselves more. There's been such a divide of a law firm's here, a compliance consultant is here, an accounting firm is here. Operationally, what we're trying to solve with AI is very, very similar, right? Like a database query or extracting information. And I do see that there could be a new type of services industry that's not a law firm alone, that is, has either very integrated partnerships or actually integrated operations with, other similar types of tech-enabled services companies, for sure.
Integration will come,
Exactly.
and moving to the human capital, the culture. I mean, it's a new organization. I'm still agile, I understand, but how would you describe the culture of Covenant? I mean, you still have to build it and develop it. I'm sure you're growing because you're being successful. So.
Yeah, I would say the culture is it is it is lawyer led, right? So Richard and I are lawyers, so there is a thoughtfulness and a deliberateness to what we do, but it's for people who are anchored in that analytics, but who want to see something change. And it's very easy to be a lawyer at a law firm in a way. There's an easy career path. It's very difficult work, but there aren't that many out there of lawyers or others who say, okay, I really want to take this leap and sort of I want to deliver results as good as a big law firm, but I want to do it in an innovative way. And I think we sort of, I think everybody at the company shares that, that vision and that balance of those two things.
And what kind of people thrive at Covenant, and what kind of people, maybe even if they're very strong lawyers, would not like to be there or have not enjoyed the experience?
Yeah. Uncertainty. I mean, it's funny. I hired a lot of lawyers at WeWork, and I hired lawyers at Wilmer, where I was before, but that was a different process. But at WeWork, over the course of the company, different types of people were attracted to it, right? And so you see that here. There is a much smaller set of lawyers that are interested in joining a company with uncertainty. There's also the engineers that we have. There's a smaller set of engineers that want to work with lawyers, right? So we have this very unique Venn diagram of lawyers that are excited by technology and technologists that are excited by law, and so I think you just shrink the universe down to those people, we tend to get along, personally, right?
It's like a Formula One team. You have the driver and you have the engineer. So do you guys get together and share experiences like on I don't know, a weekly basis, your lawyers, yourself, and the engineers to try and improve the tool, or
Oh
how do
yeah,
you manage?
yeah. No, we, I mean, I'm essentially head of product, right? So I work, with the engineers all the time. We also all sit in New York. We have a few engineers who are in Eastern Europe, but our, principal engineers are in New York. But yeah, it's incredibly integrated what we do, right? So, if you're creating a tool to review or have commentary on an intense legal agreement, you need to have some context for that. Or for example, we just launched, actually today, sort of an Ask Covenant AI chat, right? And it's not a chatbot like ChatGPT exists. We don't want to compete with ChatGPT, right? We're not going to, or, whatever, Gemini exists. But what we have is we have the agreement, and we've anonymized the agreement, and that confidentiality, matters to our client. And so some of the tech bridge that we can have is understanding like that's a client sensitivity. How do we make the experience seamless, knowing that they want anonymized data? And so, again, if you want to just go to ChatGPT and ask some questions, sure, we don't want to compete with that. But if you have something confidential and you want to query your agreement, you can come to Covenant. And so having engineers that understand that and develop that together is really quite special.
Yeah, the anonymization of the names and data, I've not seen it in many services provider, but for example, in some places in Middle East with all this privacy, that it's actually a great plus. So yeah, no, definitely that's a very good thing to have.
Exactly.
And so you're a tech, legal, traditional, new breed. So what do? You allow remote working? You want people to be at the office? How do you manage that?
Well, I'm remote right now. We really do want people in the office, but not full time. We understand that that's not, eh, you know. Let me reframe it. Um, I'm very demanding on myself and have been my entire career. I really don't want to ask people to do anything that I would not want to do. And so one of those is to be in the office 5 days a week. But just on as an aside, 1995, I was working in Boston and for personal reasons wanted to move to New York. And I asked if I could telecommute. I was a consultant and I worked remotely in 1995 and I never stopped. So even when I was at a law firm at Wilmer, which seems so crazy, no questions asked, you could work 2 days a week from home. And so when I had a small child, I worked 2 days a week from home, for a long time. And so the WeWork years were different because WeWork was an in-person company because it was an office company. But I have believed in sort of, I have an introverted side. I have like, I'm very good at home. I can, focus. And so I've been a believer in that hybrid model for basically my entire career. So there's no way I'm going to insist on everyone
Don't
being in.
worry, it was just a quick, fun question. So I
Yeah,
know it's
no,
been a
no,
huge debate. Now it's fading a bit after COVID,
it
but I
is.
think a few months ago was still in
Yeah.
on the
But
front
I
page.
do
But
like
now,
everyone being in person. I do. I like that. I think it's important. I like, I'm old school. Honestly, we go meet clients in person. I think that's actually, really important. I travel a fair amount. So I think that combination of in person, but also, not being crazy. Yeah.
and you mentioned it a bit, but I mean, I think I read in the media these days that Covenant made an announcement. You launched a new product. You were seeking for investors. Can you talk a bit about that, just to understand what was the direction of travel for you guys?
Yeah, yeah. So I think right now we're very focused on serving clients, and we think we know we have a real solution for those clients, and just increasing the client base and increasing our footprint. The standard private markets we do. Any fund, co-investment vehicles, hedge funds, continuation vehicles, just continuing to build that. At the same time, we're doing venture investments. And so we just started doing that for VC clients. 2026 will really be sort of a big focus on building up that client base to do those deals. Again, sort of staying where we can make a considerable impact and not just a marginal impact on the experience.
See, and I mean, you mentioned a bit, but when it comes to automating legal workflows, everybody is talking about that. If you take the next 12 to 24 months, I'm not asking you too far out because nobody knows today, but what do you think can be a bit more automated, or what do you see the natural evolution of? Because I mean, I have my opinion. I would automate everything, but I understand they cannot be done. So, what is your view? Because you are the expert.
Yeah, what would you would automate? What's everything to you?
No, I think, I mean, even this the same agreement, it's still the structure of the agreements has been the same for 100 years. I mean, if you have technology, you don't even need a structure. You just inquire the machine and then you get the information out of it. So you don't, but that's too much. So let's go in slowly. But what do you think is next in terms of legal automation?
So I agree with that. I actually think when we think about what is possible, we're only doing one side of the transaction. There is sort of this, um, inherent inefficiency or just inherent obstacle that law firms, there are two sides, right? So that marriage of the two sides together is going to be hard, right? So each side doesn't fully trust the other side, right? There's like this natural divide. If there is some way for sort of technology to smooth that, the in between the transaction and the judgment and advice are over here, then a lot in the middle can be automated. So for example, when I started, the idea of like track changes didn't exist. I mean, I actually had hand mark changes, I mean, I was just on the cusp of redlining, where redlining was a great technology. This idea of you trade a red line, you trade a red line, you trade a red line. There should be a way where
You
that
made it
going
too easy to make too many comments.
changes, yeah, too many comments. And if the business person knew, many of those changes wouldn't be made, right? So sometimes it's legal advice and sometimes it's a business decision. We believe almost everything is a business decision. And so if it can get elevated out of language, then I think you'll see a lot of efficiency throughout the process. Lawyers at their desks just typing changes, happy to glad, is not a great use of anyone's time.
Mediation should be automated through AI because I think that would be a good one. But right, and so if you think, I mean, a bit fast forward beyond, you are based in New York, so you're serving the US, and you mentioned that you're looking at going overseas. And what's your expansion plan, whatever you can say, I mean, in terms of, and how you look at it, because
Yeah, the way we look at it is because we're so focused on different areas, I would almost think of it as like a GM model, right? Like it's not a partner model where a partner brings in business. Everything is firm business. It's like you come to Covenant, it should not be, one partner's relationship, but there is a trust factor. There is client, we meet every client. And so what I would think is that what we would like to have is, for each, product, each vertical, each set of, investments that we do, is that you have someone who sort of runs that business, but that it is local. So I could see someone doing private markets and we have, 5 offices around the world. I could see venture capital and you have even 5 offices in the US, right? Like, depending on the nature of it. You could see doing real estate and that has a different dynamic. But, you sort of have these relationship, owners who sort of run a business as local as it needs to be for the client base that they're running. And I think that's really how we would expand. So, that land and expand and then, different vertical by vertical.
I understand, and good luck with that. Because Europe, I mean, probably the UK, it's an easier market to start from, I would imagine. Then, but and talking regulation, then. So, how do you see regulation as a kind of an enabler, or you think that because there's so much concern around AI, and some people sometimes see it as we're going to lose our job, and so we have to stop it, and some countries even ban GPT, I think, for some time, mine included. So you see regulation as a risk. You see as regulation as it's just business as usual. It's always been, will always been there.
I think for legal and these types of things, it won't be a barrier. I really don't. I think sort of the risks of AI are in fields that are not in ours, whether it's, people getting, therapy online or medical advice or truly private things, but sort of, an efficiency to read a document. I don't think there's actually a public policy concern over that. And I don't think regulation will be a big issue. So.
Good. I mean, I think we went a little bit above half an hour. So just a couple of very quick questions. What would be the advice you would give to your younger selves? Because you've been around. I mean, I read your CV on LinkedIn. You have been many different successful careers: a business consultant, a partner in a law firm, a senior executive, now a co-founder. I don't know what's next, but seems like an interesting ride. So
Yeah, so I guess my younger self is, say yes and be patient. I think, there's a lot of, I said yes a lot. I think I had a lot of impatience when I was younger. As a funny aside, I always say when people ask me, not related to career, I broke my shoulder skiing when I was much younger and I didn't have surgery. So my real answer is get the surgery because my shoulder never recovered. So that's my real answer is, if I could give myself one advice, I really wish I had got that surgery.
right. I think, although I know there are lots of lawyers, also other people are rugby players, and they all broken their shoulder for some reason. I don't know,
Yeah.
but and given that younger, I mean, I meet a lot of young students, and I'm surprised to see there are still a lot of people and young students who want to become a lawyer. So what would you advise them to do? Because academia, it may not be as advanced as you are. I mean, they're very smart, but technology is different, especially the practice of law. So, what would you advise them to do if to study something else, to study law, but specialize in, I don't know, AI or data
Yeah,
science?
I think being a lawyer is a great career. I really do. I've loved being a lawyer. I still like it. That's why I want to do this. I come to sort of reinventing the law from loving lawyers and loving the law as opposed to hating lawyers and hating the output. I think there is a huge opportunity for an exciting career. So I wouldn't do it if you think, oh, this is the pathway to be a $20 million partner at a big law firm, because that may or may not be your opportunity. That may be ephemeral. But if you really like the intellectual challenge, if you like the complexity of the law, if you like sort of the, some of the hard work that goes into being a lawyer, then go for it. And I think AI will make the job better. I don't think it'll be worse.
Okay, good. And so last question is, what is your morning routine? Are you a coffee person, tea person? You go for a walk, you walk the dog, or or
Yeah.
something else?
Oh,
Crazy
yeah.
things. Maybe there's something crazy you
My
do in the morning.
morning routine is coffee for sure and walking the dog. So I mean it's a pretty basic one, and then eggs. you know.
It works. It works.
So protein, coffee, and a walk. So
Excellent. So, Jen Berrent, thank you very much for your time and answering our silly questions. And yeah, good luck for the future. I'm sure it's going to be a bright one.
excellent. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen. I'll post it in the next few days on LinkedIn if that is okay with you. I can send you even
Okay, excellent.
the write up. I don't know if you have a bio or a photo of you that
Will do.
I can use.
Yep.
And yeah, and then I saw that you put in your video on your website all the interviews you've done. So I'll send you our little thing, and then yeah, and then who knows? Maybe we'll meet in person at